Hello, you are listening to another TOGcast, and we have a special guest today who is part of the TOGA community. He is a racer. I've commentated many races that he's been involved in. I really enjoyed watching everything that's been going on, and he has a unique job, and we're going to find that out in a second, so I'm not going to blather on too much. Just please make sure that if you're listening to this on YouTube, you like it, you're following on the YouTube channel, and if you're listening on Spotify, please make sure you're following us so you don't miss out on any episodes. Right, as I say, we'll go into a couple of questions just now, because we are going to split this into two because of your unique occupation. But what's your name?
My name is Stephen Hood, and those that know me tend to call me Steve, so feel free to use the shortened version.
Superb, that's phenomenal. Anything that shortens me talking is a good thing. If you don't mind me asking, how old are you?
I don't mind you asking, because I know how old you are, Matt. I am 46. Oh. I turned 46. I can't believe it. I actually can't believe it. I turned 46 last week, so I'm new to this age. You can probably tell me all about it.
The only thing I can prescribe is lots of ibuprofen for all the aches and pains that you suddenly start getting when you get older. And then everything starts creaking and things like that. So whereabouts are you based in the world?
These days, I'm in the sunny climes of Kent, in the southeast of the UK. So I'm just south of London, really.
Right.
And I've been here for the last few years, yeah.
Excellent. I was in Kent many, many years ago. Is that known as the Garden of England or something?
The Garden of England, I believe it is. Yeah, something along those lines. And it's a line that I used on my wife when I convinced her to move down here. She wasn't my wife at the time, and didn't know much about Kent because she's actually not from England, she's from Ukraine.
Right, okay.
And I sold her on the dream of moving. It's the Garden of England. We'll be so near France. We'll be over in Paris regularly, selling the romantic dream. And I tell you, in the probably 6 years that I've been here, I've taken her to France once.
So she doesn't hold grudges then, that's a good thing.
She does, but I'll tell her the next location that we move to, and we'll be fine again, I'm sure.
Oh dear. So I have obviously elaborated a little bit, but can you just tell us what your occupation is, please?
My occupation, as it is on my contract, I'm the CEO of a company called Motorsport Games, who are a video game developer and run esports tournaments and all sorts. So it's things like British Touring Car, Le Mans, Nascar, IndyCar, and stuff like this. So gaming.
Absolutely. And have you always been in that environment throughout your career, or is this something that new for you?
No, I've been doing it for a long time. So since the late 90s or something. I think 97 I started working in the gaming industry, and I worked for a company called Signosis back in the day, who became Sony Liverpool. Worked on a bunch of different games when 3D graphics cards first came out, PCs, and PlayStation 1 was around. And I guess the first main game that I took control of was a game called Formula 1 2001, it was called. Yeah, on a PlayStation back in the day. So I've been around for a while, and I always gravitate back towards racing, or people pull me back towards that. It's like you have one hit as a film star, and then that's the only role that people will cast you in thereafter. So, pros and cons. Yeah.
So I've always had a look at the website, and just for the listeners, if there's anything that Steve can't talk about, he'll obviously let me know. I'm not going to ask ridiculous questions you sometimes hear people asking. Well, hopefully I don't anyway. But hopefully you can all understand that Stephen can only talk about things that have been published online and things like that. We're not going to have any major secrets revealed. So I mean, NASCAR seems to be a huge part of the kind of motorsport games by what I've been looking at online. I take it you've been in the kind of NASCAR scene for a while now then?
Yeah, I mean the company has. I mean, Motorsport Games was actually formed, and I was probably one of the first employees, and we started this crazy idea up.
All right.
In a company called Motorsport Network, and they're a media empire. They have things like, you've probably seen Autosport magazine, a
Yes,
website will reference these things all the time. Yeah.
Yep.
So the guy that owned all of those things thought it was a natural transition for us to move into games, and there were a few connections at the time. People that wrote me in when I was looking for a new role, and this was the craziest one that popped up. And it was people like James Allen, if you remember him,
Yes,
commentator of Formula One.
Yep.
Yeah. I knew him for many years because of the Formula One games.
Right.
And he and another chap kind of convinced me that, why don't you come and help us set something up here? And this was 5 or so years ago now, and one thing led to another, and we started a company called Motorsport Games.
Wow.
And we acquired another entity in the US, a company called 704 Games, who had the NASCAR license, and that was our way in.
Right, okay.
And the NASCAR Heat video games. So we started from there, from really zero to where we are today. It's been highs and lows, as there is in all businesses, but yeah, that was how it started.
Wow. And were you a fan of NASCAR before kind of going into that sector of the gaming side?
I wouldn't say that I was an avid follower, but I've always been a fan of all forms of motorsport, and NASCAR was always one that was on the radar because it still had a huge following. Yeah. And certainly the game franchise has been quite consistent there as well. And our view that there was an opportunity to make a stronger game for that market segment and build some new technology that would get better and better. But who doesn't follow kind of NASCAR because of things like Days of Thunder? And I'm not joking. Yeah. That was one of my reference points early on, and somehow we managed to get the license and keep building that. And IndyCar more recently, despite me having a very clear English accent, so I didn't hold it against me.
That's good. That's good. Sometimes it's like at football and soccer and the whole thing. There's sometimes premeditation thoughts that he's English, he's not going to understand, or things like that. But I mean, if it's got 4 wheels and an engine, it's not that far different to what we experience here for it. So yeah, I mean, obviously there's IndyCar. There's also the Le Mans. Now, is it right that did you develop the Le Mans sim?
Well, yeah, it gets complicated because the license with TACA and Le Mans, so that experience was started with Le Mans Esports Series, the Le Mans Virtual. And that became kind of a huge thing, massive interest, because there were a lot of connections across the company as well, and lots of people that were involved that help us reach the drivers, the sponsors, and make a big deal of the whole thing. But it was the launch pad really for bringing a Le Mans video game to the market. And that has been kind of publicly announced. And that is Le Mans Ultimate, that one of the teams is working on at the moment, Studio 397, the team behind RFactor, a really great bunch of developers. So you can kind of understand that it's got a sim framework from the very beginning, which for me is really important. Like the heart and soul of a racing experience has to be the driving model and everything else that goes with it. And RFactor is widely regarded as being one of the strongest in that area. So it was a no-brainer to build Le Mans on top of that and extend the technology, which is what the guys have been working on for some time now.
Yep, absolutely. And I mean, Le Mans is such a loved race. It doesn't matter if it's Formula One you prefer, or if it's GT, or if it's a British touring car. Everyone seems to have an interest in Le Mans and in the cars, because obviously a lot of the technology in the cars then transfers down into road cars and cars we can all drive on a daily basis. And I read on the website, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but the Le Mans, the virtual Le Mans, there was a little showcase done recently or was it last year, sorry, where fans were able to actually see bits and pieces of what the game may entail.
Yes, yeah. We started to tease those things. I mean, the team are super keen to show stuff early because, to be perfectly honest, I try to hide my bias as much as possible, but it's looking great.
Yeah.
And we're super excited about it. And at the centenary, so earlier on this year in June, we kind of showcased the beginnings of that product. Not really behind closed doors, but we had an event there, and the public could queue up, and there was massive interest in there. And one of the things that we think resonates with people is, even if you're not following endurance racing, but the brands, the manufacturers, and the marques involved in World Endurance Championship as a larger thing, and Le Mans, they're instantly recognisable. Lamborghini coming in, and Ferrari and Porsche, and all these kind of amazing brands.
Yeah,
it's the concept of a team working together, which is not common in motorsport. I mean, you reference Formula One, and I've got more years of experience with that than I care to remember. But that's always kind of dog eat dog. And yes, you're part of a team, but really your teammate is the first person that you need to beat.
Yes.
Whereas in endurance racing and WEC and Le Mans, where you've got these other drivers with you, and you've got the concept of achieving things before you even get to the track, and the world around it is really fascinating and should give us the the necessary pieces to make a really compelling experience beyond just the driving. And that's what attracted us to the whole relationship in the first place. But very excited about that one.
And was it easier having a base, the sim base of RFactor, to then build from that the Le Mans?
For sure. I mean, I'm a developer by heart, but not an engineer. And engineering teams always want to start from scratch, and I understand why.
Yep.
But we didn't need to reinvent the wheel. I mean, you wouldn't want to come out of the gate and try to, in effect, recreate the best parts of RFactor 2 from the ground up when it's already there. Which is why, as a broader company, Motorsport Games acquired Studio 397 and all of the technology associated with it. To give a head start. I worked on a Formula One series for many, many years, and I'm sure none of them will mind me saying, although I'll probably get a few letters in the post, I was never happy with the kind of underlying driving sensation and feeling. Right. So if you're missing what I had previously described as the heart and soul, it doesn't matter about all the other things that you stick on around it. You can keep building the experience and going wider, but the heart is missing. And with RFactor, the heart is there. The other stuff can be confusing, and that's what we're tidying up for Le Mans Ultimate.
And that, I mean, the sim racing community, there's many things that can either be sold on or shown, but if the physics, if the driving, if the feedback, if that's not all there, then they won't touch it. And we'll obviously touch on the fact that you drive with an ACC as well. I'm just reading though that there's up a maximum of 50 cars, obviously split between the LMP and the GTE categories. That's a lot of cars.
It is a lot, and that's another advantage of using RFactor, because it can utilize huge grids of cars, lots of different disciplines, and there's a framework for something like World Endurance Championship and endurance racing is already there. It's not without its challenges, but it's a PC product, and it's tried and tested technology that's been extended, so we're in a great place with that. We haven't had to reinvent everything. We can just concentrate on the things that we think will positively differentiate it. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. I mean, it just blows my mind. I mean, there was a race last night. Obviously, this is going to be released later on, probably next month. But there was a race last night where there was 33 cars on ACC, and it was just utter chaos. Obviously, the Nürburgring's a lot shorter than what the Le Mans track is, but I just cannot imagine, especially when you then end up lapping and you're having to get out of the way and things like that. So I mean, I think that will be a huge draw as well, to see so many cars and teams for it. I mean, you've had 85 requests for entries into the race. That is just wow.
Yeah, the field in last night's race, you mentioned 33 or 34. I think it was 35 because I seem to remember starting 35th.
Yep.
I may be wrong, but I don't have as you might imagine, a great deal of time to practice or qualify.
Yeah.
Certainly in the other occasions.
Mm-hmm.
Competing on SimGrid in the kind of TOGA Motorsport Championship for me it is great entertainment.
Yep.
And the organisation and the sense of community, what drew me in the first place.
Yeah.
But I it's very difficult for me sometimes to kind of break away because of the job. I'm based in the UK, but we have operations in Australia, US, across Europe, and
sure.
These days I have to say UK separate to Europe.
Yeah.
So sometimes I think, I want to participate, and last night I think I jumped in a couple of minutes before the race started and to begin at the back. So, but I don't mind that. I was nowhere in the championship anyway. There's some really fast guys in that race, and it's fun kind of trying to fight your way through and try to get to the top 10, let's say. And
absolutely,
it's the participation that matters in that one. Yeah.
Yep. I'd like to touch on it because obviously a lot of people will obviously recognise the name of RFactor 2 for that. So you're the actual organisation of Motorsport Games. Do you have multiple developers under your umbrella then that are developing different games?
Yeah, I mean there's different entities in there. I mean, 704 Games existed originally. They were the publishing arm, had a development studio in the US. We acquired from a company called Black Delta the Kartcraft team and Kartcraft technology, which is built on Unreal Engine. Yep. They're over in Australia, in Melbourne. I was there a few weeks ago.
Oh, nice.
A bit of a trek. Yeah. Great bunch of people working on some really exciting stuff.
Excellent.
And Studio 397 was acquired in its entirety, and we've grown that over time. So yeah, there's a few different brands, and they have their own identity, but they all sit in the Motorsport Games umbrella. And I've been around here from the beginning, and probably prompted a lot of those acquisitions. And then I was on kind of somewhat of an enforced holiday, and I came back in April, as I call it, for season 2, to try and right the ship and do good stuff, because there's some amazing people here, and they want to release great games, and I love racing games, and it's a pleasure to be here.
It's so enlightening to hear someone who's obviously head of this organisation that is so passionate about racing. It's not just I don't want to say any other developers' names, but it's not like a developer who's so big that they're just releasing games because of the name or because of the title did well in the last one, so we'll just do another one. You've got that passion behind you, and obviously, as you've said, you've got the developer background as well for it. I mean, RFactor 2 was released on March 28th, 2017. That's 6 years ago, and it's still going strong yet. What do you think this kind of success behind RFactor 2 is?
I think I've always maintained that I think there's a market out there for people who love the purity of driving and racing. Yep. And RFactor's always catered to that crowd in the same way that something like iRacing does, for example. Yes. But you could argue iRacing does things a little better in certain areas than RFactor than others. Yep. And I think people kind of gravitated towards RFactor once they experienced the driving model. And then there's a variety of different content that they can get, and you end up embedded within the community and you stay there. Yep. But what's clear for us is there are things that can be improved in RFactor, and with the licenses that Motorsport Games have today, we could do great things with RFactor as a base. Sure. And I always called it, take the best pieces of different technologies. RFactor is obviously a leader in particular areas. Put them all into the Witcher folder and mix it up, and we'll have a shot at making a decent sim. Yeah,
absolutely. What I love about RFactor, I mean, I haven't done a lot of racing on it, but there are so many different categories that you can race. It's not just... ACC has obviously proven themselves for their GT cars, but RFactor, there's so much more that you can do. And I believe you're finishing off the last of the 2023 grid on British touring cars as well. I saw that in the website.
Yeah, but British touring cars is another license that we hold, and the content that we injected into RFactor before the launch of the full game, which is yet to be revealed. That's been, hugely well received in the community. And I have always maintained that, the cars are great to drive. It's cool tracks, great cars. The speed and the pace of the driving is really important as well. And when we always compare it to something like you referenced, something like Formula One, then the cars are all so quick. There's very little chance to correct an error. If you're, outbraking yourself, then it's game over.
Yep.
And the fine margins don't make it so mainstream as something like British touring car, where you can go, I'm outbraking myself, I can do something to correct it and save the car.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
And that makes for compelling close racing. And we're really excited about that one as well. And it's a great example of the content being pushed into RF2.
Yep.
People seem to love that, which is a great indicator for us.
Absolutely. I mean, I started off with TOGA on the PlayStation 1. That was my first kind of push into racing, and myself and one of my friends spent weekends, not just hours but weekends, racing TOGA. Because I think part of it was the close battling of the cars. You didn't have a little bit unlike Formula One, where you have cars being developed to be so much faster than any other team that then becomes a one-horse race with manufacturers. Whereas BTCC, the cars are so vitally different, but they're so closely competitive with each other. And I always remember, Vauxhall Cavaliers bumping doors with each other, and was it Cleland that used to drive the Vauxhalls back
Cleland.
then? Yeah.
Wasn't he? Yeah, I'm going for first. Yeah, I remember. Yeah. Everybody's got their kind of rose-tinted view of it, but British touring cars are still amazing today. And when we originally got the license, the chap that runs the whole organisation, a guy called Alan Gout, really nice guy, super knowledgeable, great businessman. We managed to convince him that British touring car could still be successful in the gaming market, and he was fully behind that. Just for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned. It's great entertainment, and it's great to participate in. So,
and it's also,
looking forward to seeing that one.
Absolutely. And although they are not a car you could go and buy off a showroom, they're very similar and very close to a car that you could literally go buy and drive yourself on a public road. So I absolutely love BTCC. It's such an amazing format, and I'm so glad to see that the television people are actually broadcasting it and still showcasing it for what it is. And let's face it, you have drivers who could be in their late 40s, as well as the drivers that are
40, even up to 46 or something.
That's a heavy age.
Pushing it, the veterans league. Yeah, I'm feeling guilty now. I'm feeling as though that I'm using this as a promotional piece, and you're going to make me sink into my. Yes, it's yours for $99.99 coming out next week.
Oh man, no, not at all. But I think it's interesting because obviously. Hayden had obviously given me the kind of heads up of your job, your career, your title and things like that, and I'm really interested. So if I'm interested, then I know there's other people in the TOGA community, but also other people out with the TOGA community who will be really interested in the contents, because you are a sim racer and producing racing games for a sim racer, so it's just also very interesting for it. Thank you so much for listening to part 1 of Steve Hood's podcast. We will be back next week with the second part. Till then, take care, stay safe, bye bye.